Thank you so much for joining me to discuss my thesis that asks, what are imaginative capabilities and how do they develop? A grounded theoretical approach to understanding imaginative leadership. First, I would like to acknowledge that this is being presented from Wolfville, Nova Scotia, on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And I acknowledge them as the past, present, and future caretakers of this land. What is the outline for this presentation? After introducing this study, I will review the methodology and procedures that guided it. Then, the themes and core categories in the findings will be discussed before sharing interpretations, recommendations, and where the study could lead to in future research. I am positioned as a first-generation Canadian, Caucasian, cisgendered male and father of two. I've taught high school visual arts for 27 years and Bachelor and Master of Education courses in creativity for 12. I learned how to lead from the middle as an education consultant and executive in national and provincial professional organizations. I'm also a professional visual artist and amateur actor. Here I am with my two kids, then singing in a musical, and posing with my BEd class, and then next to that is one of my wildflower paintings. Key definition for the study are capabilities. A capability is a practical ability to achieve an outcome. And educational leadership capabilities are the abilities to use relevant knowledge to solve complex problems, to promote student cultures of learning, to build trusting relationships that inspire and support teachers, and to improve and transform a school. From a literature review of imagination, the term I'm using to define imagination in this study is a process of conjuring phenomena drawn from conscious and unconscious thoughts that are made conscious in the form of information-rich perceptions, memories, image schemas, and bodily gestures, and occurs somewhere between stimulus response and behavioral action. Within the context of this study, then, an imaginative leader is a leader who applies imaginative capabilities as part of their professional practice. The purpose of this study is to provide educational leadership scholars with new knowledge that can inform a grounded theory on what imaginative capabilities are in leaders and how they develop. A grounded theoretical approach helped to unearth answers to my research questions that contemporary theory does not address. The research questions that guided this grounded theoretical study included: how do imaginative educational leaders conceptualize imagination and imaginative capabilities? What do imaginative educational leaders perceive as fundamental to developing their imaginative capabilities and imaginative practice? And what themes emerge as theoretical outcomes that might inform professional learning for imaginative leaders in education? What is grounded theory and why does it matter? Grounded theory is a research innovation by Barney Glaser and Anselm Strauss, created in response to the need for scholarly protocols that enable generation of new theory on phenomena that is not well explained by existing theory. As a pragmatic approach, I used grounded theory in this study as a methodology to abstract participant experiences into theoretical statements that explain their understanding of imagination and how their imaginative capabilities developed. The next slide discusses the procedures that guided this study. To select a population to study through Strauss and Juliet Corbin's approach to grounded theory, following a snowball and link tracing technique, I invited 15 educational leaders who have led innovative initiatives in an educational context. Upon being invited to participate, participants self-selected into the study through a tool asking if they led professional staff and conceived of or significantly shaped an innovative vision that they successfully integrated into their school structure. First, I hosted semi-structured one-on-one interviews over Microsoft Teams, and interview questions were framed to learn the context, constraints, conditions, strategies, and consequences for imaginative activities. Then I sent transcripts to participants to verify their sentiments were accurately captured. After the data samples collected from transcripts were open-coded using participant words. For my analysis, emerging categories, samples, and memos were actually coded, constantly compared and abstracted, using common representations of imaginative capabilities. I used in vivo software to aid in the sorting, line-by-line coding, and comparing the sample data. After comparing categories of axial codes, selective coding united categories around core categories where sample data saturated into reliable themes. Saturation was noted when no new similarities or differences could be identified. Now, I would like to present my findings. 6 themes of holistic behaviors emerged from the data and were sorted into 2 core categories: sense, think, act, and ponder, enact, play. These core categories are composed of behavioral couplets, as seen in the column on the left. The core categories of sense, think, act is composed of sensing, thinking, acting, and daring, trying. Ponder, enact, play captures the behavioral couplets of wander, pondering, exploring, enacting, and collaborating, playing. Findings here are represented as 2 core categories, each with 3 behavioral themes and 3 imaginative capabilities. On the left in blue is the core behavioral category of sense, think, act. On the right in orange is ponder, enact, play. The overlapping inner couplets are behaviors, and the outer rings represent leadership capabilities, where thoughts and actions are observed together. I will now present each core category in detail, starting with sense, think, act. One core category formed around imaginative leaders within a holistic pattern of sense, think, act, with leaders processing, sensing, thinking, and acting through behavioral couplets. These played out in an ongoing iterative process of sensing, thinking, acting, and daring, trying. Across interviews, participants described an openness to perceive novel ideas intrinsically linked with an intention to act on them. Embedded in the data for each behavioral couplet were 3 related imaginative capabilities: contextual cognition, innovative ignition, and fearless experimentation. To participants, imagination required an openness to receive the right information for thinking up improved scenarios. Sensing, thinking is a behavior of simultaneously perceiving and pondering social problems within a context. Contextually cognitive capable leaders sense a problematic context and contemplates ways to improve it. For example, when Ms. Callahan became the principal of a staff accustomed to strict policies, she felt pressure from teachers to ban cell phones in classrooms. Meanwhile, she noticed that while most kids complied with the controlled access to school, she sensed that the teens regularly in her office for cell phone violation often turned to their phones out of boredom, a preoccupation, or feeling disconnected from school. Ms. Callahan contemplated what she could do to curb cell phone use by addressing what she thought the phone use was actually signaling. She was also aware that whatever she does must ensure teachers feel supported, and thought this was an opportunity to build relationships with staff. Thinking acting is a sense-informed thinking behavior that is inseparable from contemplations of action and considering how to make ideas come to life. Innovative ignition is the capability to imagine positive social change that includes motivation to serve as a catalyst to make it happen. These leaders described valuing in relationships as they seed imaginative activity. For example, as a principal, Ms. Callahan applied the capability to notice bored children and learn about how kids with bigger concerns than school at home. Ms. Callahan contemplated how to lead teachers to improve their practice and relationships with students. In other words, rather than relying on one-size-fits-all policies, this imaginative leader modeled how to ignite innovation with ways to turn a problem into opportunities. Daring trying is exhibited through a willingness to give something new a try over continuing with dissatisfying situations. As a capability, fearless experimentation is modeled by leaders who ignore or circumvent social perceptions and barriers to try new ideas and learn through action. Ms. Callahan stepped in to imagine with teachers ways to enliven their lessons, such as taking lessons out of the classroom, using cell phones to support and document just-in-time research. By fostering a professional learning community that incentivizes imagining, this imaginative leader fearlessly experimented through sense, think, act. Ms. Callahan was able to turn an ongoing, troublesome context that would otherwise invite conflict into an opportunity to foster relationships and teacher reflection. I will now turn to examine the findings of the next core category, ponder, enact, play. A second core category formed around imaginative leaders within a pattern of ponder and act play that emerged from childhoods full of experiential learning from playing in unstructured time and in the absence of adult supervision, freeing them to explore, experiment with, and enact their ideas. Themes that inform this category emerged as behavioral couplets of wandering, pondering, exploring, enacting, and collaborating playing. These behaviors led to 3 more imaginative capabilities of empathetic contemplation, adaptive manifestation, and inclusive gamification, all related to generating and making social change, and abilities to effectively engage others in their imaginative work. As children, participants wandered and pondered with ample instruction and unsupervised time for adventuring and not knowing what would happen, but going out to find out. On any given Saturday, Dominic was on his bike looking for the bikes of other kids in neighborhood yards or over Wooden Hill Trail to look for them in Tecumseh Park. When he found kids, sometimes from other schools, he played their games to get along. This inclusive childhood behavior continued into professional practice. For example, early in the year as a district director of programs and services, Eloise would visit different sites on in-service days to meet teachers and discover how to best support them. Later in the year, she would prioritize fairs and showcases as a way to connect with them while celebrating accomplishments, assessing their supports, and to dream about what could be done next year. The behavioral theme of exploring and acting emerged from participants exploring curiosities and making something out of nothing, like when Michelle was 4 and she put on classes and performances for older kids. As a principal, Michelle demonstrated adaptive manifestation capabilities, imagining and creating engaging spaces and educational activities simultaneously, and refining their innovations in real time. Michelle jumped in to build a culture of learning by doing. Even in the absence of encouraging caregivers, participants could be seen collaborating and playing, which fostered people skills. This developed a capability for inclusive gamification leaders who engage a wide variety of people in working together on fun challenges playfully. Now, it's one thing for kids who can lay on the grass and compete for the wildest things they can envision in the clouds to then grow into adults who play together to envision and draft what a 21st century could look like. Perhaps the greatest surprise that came out of this study is the identification of an imaginative leadership as its own distinctive leadership style, observable through a malleable, holistic framework of behaviors and capabilities that improve education. This study further revealed a new understanding of imaginative activity expanding beyond the head to include the body and the context, and where imaginative leadership style can evolve to integrate what works into a leadership practice. Because imaginative leaders can consistently navigate constraints and solve meaningful problems, their leadership style is worthy of more attention for its potential benefits not yet leveraged at the system level. The next slide offers some recommendations for practice. As imaginative leaders explore multiple possible approaches to remedy school challenges, systems could see immeasurable gains from identifying and growing their leadership style. For instance, embedding fun and sensory, contemplative, exploratory, and collaboratively generative approaches to professional learning could instill a playful approach that is contagious, noted as essential to engagement for leaders who innovate. Systems could loosen bureaucratic attitudes, structures, and policies to allow imaginative leaders to approach unknown and unexpected challenges through their holistic and imaginative style. Findings also offer new pathways for future research. These findings could lead to future qualitative research that examines if and how professional learning can develop imaginative leadership capabilities in educational contexts and beyond. Through quantitative studies, large samples of imaginative leaders can be tested for generalizability. It is also worth looking for where imaginative capabilities thrive or are underused, overlooked, and undervalued in schools, and exploring where mainstream leadership styles might benefit through a transdisciplinary lens that includes this new model of leadership that addresses emergent complex challenges. Through this doctoral research, I was able to identify the behaviors and capabilities of imaginative leaders by acquiring a rich understanding of how these developed and identifying a new leadership style that is ripe for future research. Thank you.